few days ago, Apple released iOS 18.7.7. To most, just a security update. But in my eyes, it's proof that Apple could continue to support iOS 18 for all sorts of devices, rather than forcing people to stay on iOS 26. Releasing software updates for older versions for the sake of security is not new to Apple. However, these updates are usually restricted just to older devices that cannot run the fully fledged new software. However, 18.7.7 has one key difference. 18.7.7 works on all devices that have supported iOS 18 at some point, rather than just devices that can't upgrade from 18. I have a question. Why downgrade in the first place? And that's a really good question, and I can give you 3 solid reasons why people want to downgrade. Reason 1, probably the most important, battery life. iPhones are portable devices, which means people expect them to last a long time after being unplugged. However, iOS 26 has a huge problem. Ever since its release, it's been proven that devices running on iOS 26 typically have worse battery life than devices running on iOS 18. Your battery life could be 30% worse just because of a software update. Next, we're going to talk about stability and speed. Since release, iOS 26 has been anything but stable. A prime example of this is the keyboard bug, a bug first introduced in iOS 26, which would cause users to consistently mistype on their keyboards. The keyboard interface would make it look like you typed the correct word, but then it would change what was actually typed into the input field. And this bug was not fixed until iOS 26.4, which was released in March, while iOS 26 was released in September. Meaning this keyboard bug was not fixed until a whopping 6 months after the official release of iOS 26. And it gets even worse. This update has been causing people's phones to become extremely slow and even breaking them, meaning they won't even load into the actual operating system. So far, this update is worsening people's batteries and even breaking their phones. The final reason people want to downgrade? iOS 26 just looks awful compared to 18. As we all know, iOS 26 introduces a new glassy design in iOS. Of course, this mostly comes down to personal preference, but the 3 reasons I just don't like the liquid glass design are: for one, it's too distracting. I prefer the flat design in iOS 18. It makes the phone look more like a tool than a toy. My second reason, in a lot of apps, the liquid glass just looks weird and kind of forced. A lot of other apps haven't even been adapted to use liquid glass yet, which makes for a lot of visual inconsistencies just when using your phone like a normal person. And finally, I might just have a bit of prejudice to the system just because it was this liquid glass update that's caused the previous issues, such as the stability and battery life issues. Those are the 3 biggest reasons why users want to downgrade, and here is why Apple totally could allow downgrading, but for some reason they choose not to. If you're new to iOS downgrading, it's a fairly simple procedure. You download a file from ipsw.me, which grabs the files from Apple's servers and links you directly to the download link. Ergo, completely safe files made by Apple. However, Apple has a process called signing, which basically determines whether that version can be installed or not. And Apple will unsign versions at will, meaning they can tell your computer and your phone, no, you can't install this. So why don't they allow downgrading? I actually couldn't find an official Apple statement saying why they don't allow downgrading, but users have compiled a list of why they think Apple doesn't allow downgrading, and it all comes down to security. If Apple allows downgrades, users could potentially expose themselves to versions that haven't been updated with the latest security practices. Except here's the thing. Apple does update their older versions with security patches, but they still don't let people go back. Well, surely it must be some sort of software-hardware compatibility, right? Nope. Because Apple actually proved to us that it's not the case. Because when Apple released 18.7.7, they accidentally released a signed IPSW for iOS 18.7.7 for an iPad 9th generation. Meaning, if you had an iPad 9th generation, you could go back to iOS 18 officially. iOS 18.7.7 is not a rare exception by any means. The only rare element about it was the fact that they released it to all devices. Apple continuously has been supporting iOS 18 since the 26 release. They just haven't been pushing the updates to all devices. And the thing is, they could be doing this actively. However, they choose not to, which is proven with iOS 18.7.3. While this update was in beta testing, public beta testing, anyone who was on iOS 18 could use it. However, when Apple finally officially released it, they only allowed iPhone XS and XR users to install it, meaning if you weren't on those devices and were still on iOS 18, you were expected to install iOS 26 if you want to keep your device secure. The same update that's been causing massive battery drain, massive device slowdowns, and even device breaking. The facts and events that I've just pointed out prove that Apple could enable downgrading to iOS 18 for users that have had problems on iOS 26. In the end, I'm hoping Apple can enable downgrading to signed, secure releases of iOS 18, similar to what they allow for macOS. On macOS, you are allowed to downgrade, and Apple does provide security releases to the 2 prior versions. As of making this video, Apple still provides security updates for macOS Sonoma and macOS Sequoia, while they even still support macOS Tahoe. Anyway, I really hope that this video makes some sort of difference in Apple's ideology. If there are any questions, feel free to write a comment. I will be checking comments, I will be responding. If you found this video entertaining or useful or informative, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hopefully Apple either makes 26 better for the public or integrates downgrading. Peace.